Okay, all right. I finally got it, guys. Welcome to this week's 10-minute 2-tip Tuesday. As always, I'm Amelia from Higher Standards Caregiver Training. I'm an occupational therapist, and I am here to deliver to you two of the most valuable tips you're going to get all week, absolutely free, on Tuesday here live. I'm a little bit late today, guys. I'm sorry. I was running back and forth from an event, and so I got started a smidge late. However, I'm here now. Let's do this thing. Before we get started, as always, do keep in mind that this is for educational purposes only. If anything that I say reminds you of someone who you think needs assistance, who you think needs to be assessed, who you think needs help from a licensed healthcare provider, then please make sure that that person gets the help that they need, as this is absolutely for educational purposes only. Okay, that is all done. Let's talk now about the first tip, which as always is for caregivers. If you're new to 10-minute 2-tip Tuesday, then the first tip is always for caregivers specifically, and the second one is always for caregiver organizations. So let's start with this first tip for caregivers, and this is a really big one. This is probably the number one reason why people reach out to me with concerns, or why people start to think about getting more help for a loved one, or perhaps getting more help for themselves in caring for a loved one. But it's really important for even professional non-medical to know about. Okay, so this is about falls. And although I could talk at length about fall prevention, and I certainly have in the past, what we're really going to be talking about today in terms of today's tip is what is something that you really should consider doing if you work with someone, or you're caring for someone, or you have a loved one who is beginning to fall. First thing that you need to know about this is that falls are not normal. Falls are not to be expected. It's not something that we should take for granted as something that is just going to happen as part of the aging process. There's almost always an underlying reason, and very often that reason can be corrected. So the tip for today is that if you're working with someone, if you have a loved one you're caring for, or just a loved one who has started to fall, then that is a great opportunity for you to reach out to that person's healthcare provider and advocate for them to be assessed and be treated, so that the underlying reasons for that fall can actually be addressed, so that person can actually be safer. There are so many reasons why someone might start falling. I'm not even going to get into that list here. I don't want to venture out on that limb, if you will. But the most important thing really to understand is that falls are not a natural process. We shouldn't expect people to start falling. And when people do start falling, that presents itself as an opportunity to figure out what that underlying problem is and help to make it better. So again, if this is making you think about a family member or a loved one or someone that you know, then advocating for that person to get assessed by a licensed healthcare provider so that they can start to sort out what that underlying cause is and what can be done about it is absolutely a really, really important piece of information to have. On the other hand, if you are a non-medical caregiver, if you're a professional caregiver watching this, and you're working with someone who has started to fall, or who you're worried about, you're noticing that things are getting worse, you're worried about them falling, that is something to bring up with the rest of the care team. Bring it up with your supervisor, bring it up with whoever is the person in the chain of command that needs to be notified when something is wrong. This is absolutely a see something, say something scenario, so that whoever is responsible for notifying the family or notifying the healthcare team that there's an issue can make sure and get that done. it's one of the most powerful things that we can do is to advocate for people when they need help. And that is true whether you are a family caregiver or you are a non-medical professional caregiver. But it's absolutely a huge and essential tip that I wanted to share with you today because it comes up all the time, y'all. Okay, tip number 2. Let me get a sip of coffee here. All right, sorry, my mouth was getting a little dry. So tip number 2 for caregiving organizations. This is, I think, one of the most important things to do and understand about your organization. And that is to define what your values are as an organization. This is really important no matter what kind of business you're running, no matter what kind of organization you're running. It's certainly really important if you're talking about a caregiving organization, though. And it's one of those things that can sort of fall to the wayside when you're so caught up in the daily chaos and the just trying to make things work and just trying to make sure everyone is where they need to go. But the reason it's so important to define what your values are as an organization is because it helps to give you a guiding principle, a guiding light, so that when you're faced with decisions about how you're going to operate your organization or how you're going to respond to something that has happened, you can look at your values and you can know what you need to do in order to be true to those values. And even though sometimes that might not be the most convenient thing to do, making sure that you are true, that everything your organization does, that all of the staff who are working in your organization, making sure that all of that is guided by the same set of principles and values is essential in actually creating an organization that you feel proud of, that you feel happy to be a part of, and that everyone who is connected with it feels happy to be a part of too. It is absolutely essential, I think, to have your values really well clarified, to communicate those values, and to make sure that the decisions that you're making follow those values as a guideline. I know it's really important for me at Higher Standards Caregiver Training in all of the decisions that I make. Okay, so that's it for me today for today's 10-Minute 2-Tip Tuesday here live. Again, my apologies that I was late today. I plan to see you, of course, next week live at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time with 2 more super valuable tips. If you have any questions, concerns in the meantime, please feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help in any way that I can. Until next time, though, y'all, take care. Bye.